Hey guys, coming in for the season premiere of Arrow, Season 4, Episode 1, Green Arrow. And as you guys remember, I was not particularly fond of last year's finale. I could even call it a rant. I really did not like last year's finale because it felt like the ending to the show, and I knew there was a Season 4, and I really didn't know what they were going to do. However, as I started to hear more and more buzz about the season, I became more and more interested because, let's face it, last season was great until Oliver decided to join Ra's al Ghul. That's when things got a little bit convoluted and things just got a little bit, too dark and there was too much going on. And I felt like after that, I wasn't as interested in the season. I was definitely more interested before that, and like I said, I think the most compelling arc they did last season was Oliver being a fugitive. That was definitely very interesting. But I really didn't know this premiere was going to be, but I have to say, this really is the return to form for the show. I mean, I think last season things just got way too dark, and I think they know this season that they need to start off fun, and it seems like it's going to be more of a fun season, even though we know at the end what happens. Right now, at least, it seems like it's going to be a lot more fun, but I'm definitely looking forward to it a lot more. And let's get into this episode. A lot happened in this episode. And right from the beginning, we can tell that this is already a different show, because as we know, Oliver is now in retirement as the Arrow. He's no longer the Arrow. He's now basically running through the woods wearing a green hooded sweatshirt. He emerged on a suburban street, slows down, greets his neighbors with a smile, and you can tell how happy he is right away. He enters the house, and Felicity and him are living there. They're pretty much living a normal life. She's cooking in the kitchen. She feeds my food, and I love it. He's like, "You have failed this omelet." I thought that was hilarious when he said that, honestly. And later in bed, she asks why he had the dragon tattoo removed from his back, and Oliver answers that he doesn't need it anymore because Olive obviously, I believe that was the tattoo for that Roz gave him, and he doesn't need that now. So they talk about her role as CEO of Palmer Tech and how he's happy not to take the company back because he doesn't want the company. He just doesn't want it because he knows that he's getting involved with things he doesn't want to get involved with, and Oliver reminds Felicity that they are having brunch with the neighbors, and basically, we just see how, better of a life they have. I mean, they have a much more peaceful life. It's a lot more normal, and you can definitely tell that Oliver is definitely getting, and Oliver and Felicity are definitely into that period of normalcy. Definitely. It's what Oliver's wanted, and that's what it seems like they're doing now. So, Laurel chases a hijacked truck on her cycle with Speedy. We can't call her Thea anymore. We gotta call her Speedy. And I love how Thea was basically so like overzealous about being with these number of thugs. She's so enthusiastic about crime fighting. She's like, "Oh my god, this is awesome. This is awesome." I thought that was definitely very funny, especially because, she's just now becoming Speedy. She's becoming Speedy. She's just now experiencing what it's like to be a vigilante, and it's really awesome. So, they get close enough for Thea to jump into the back of the truck. She fights well, taking down several enemies while complaining about her code name on the intercom. She wants to be called the Red Arrow, and one of the thieves points a gun at her, but she's saved by Diggle, who now wears a helmet that hides his face. Obviously, you can tell, is still protecting the city. And Laurel blows some of the wheels off the truck, forcing it to stop, but backup for the thieves arrives in a van. They pin Laurel, Diggle, and Thea down with a barrage of gunfire and steal the truck's cargo. And in their hideout, Thea and Laurel think that they need Oliver's help to catch these ghosts, especially when they learn that the stolen cargo was weapons. And Diggle is adamant that they do not need Oliver. As we know, things are not good between Diggle and Oliver right now. Obviously, it hasn't been good between them, and Diggle really doesn't trust Oliver right now. So, Lance meets with the district attorney, city comptroller, and the head of emergency services, and since the last three mayors have died, no one else wants the position, and the newly renamed Star City has been led by these four as a committee. Now, I know some people are like, "Oh, that's stupid," but let me tell you guys, Star City was the original name for the city anyway, and since they're trying to go to the comics and get to where the comics are, it would make sense for them to rename the city Star City. It sounds better anyway. Starling City was basically something they came up with, and I think Star City sounds a lot better. Honestly, it does. So Walter Steele was recently asked to run, but he turned it down. The town is dying in spite of a new high-speed train line attempts to increase tourism, and it's in this really bad state. It's kind of not as interesting without the Arrow around. And meanwhile, Lance is in over his head with these thieves who the media calls ghosts since they vanished so completely. And I like how much Lance is involved with this season. I mean, last season, I don't think he got annoying. Some people thought he got annoying, but I think it was really interesting, the whole thing with him and Oliver, how he was at odds with him and how he wanted to take him down because he was a criminal. But now Lance is involved with what's going on. I think that definitely is very interesting. So, on the rare occasion one is captured, they take cyanide to avoid interrogation, and basically, you can tell that these men are pretty much ruthless. And suddenly, a man appears, and he's claiming responsibility for the ghost. He tells them that his organization is there to allow Star City to die, so that someone new can take its place, and he threatens the town leaders before leaving, and this man is none other than Damien Dark, who we got introduced to in the finale. And let me just say, Damien Dark is exactly what the show needs. He is an awesome villain. He is not too over the top either, and he very much has, like, a Slade type, he's definitely a Slade type villain, not a Ra's al Ghul villain. You know, he's someone that's big, but he's not big to the point where it's kind of disappointing. Let's face it, Ra's al Ghul was kind of disappointing. Definitely, especially if you watch Batman Begins. That portrayal of Ra's al Ghul is a lot better than Arrow's portrayal of Ra's al Ghul. I personally think it is. But I thought this was a really great scene. Really got us introduced to Damien Dark, showed how threatening he is. And like I said, when I watched the trailer, that's one of the things I was most looking forward to this season, was seeing how threatening he was, and he really is very threatening. So Oliver and Felicity are at this brunch with their neighbors, and Oliver reveals that the secret to his omelets is to make them in the slow cooker. And just seeing Oliver just be at this brunch was really funny. He's apparently become quite the chef, and the neighbors asked if and which makes sense. I mean, he really has nothing better to do, so might as just, work with what he has. And basically, the neighbors asked if Oliver and Felicity wanted to be added to the waiting list for a good school. And when they point out that they don't have kids, find out that the waiting list is actually quite long. And Felicity decides to get more alcohol. And as soon as she's gone, the neighbors ask Oliver if they can see the new ring. And Oliver basically plans on proposing to Felicity. He reveals that it was Moira's, and he plans to propose to Felicity that very night. And I thought that was very sweet. I know some people are thinking that's a bit too fast, but again, we have to remember, this has been quite a few months. So, Felicity returns, trips, dropping the champagne, and Oliver literally catches it without looking, which was just awesome. And I love the scene where the guy's like, dude, you got some really cool biceps, because honestly, that was really cool, and that's only something that Oliver Queen could do. So then we see a flashback, and what I like about the flashbacks this season is that they're all when Oliver was first becoming the Arrow, because, last season it was when he got off the island, and now we're to the point where the series almost started. So I'm pretty sure that we're going to be done with flashbacks very soon, because we've seen, after this year, we've seen all we needed to see. So I don't know if they're going to get rid of the flashbacks next season, but this could be our last season of flashbacks. I don't think it's going to be our last season of Arrow, but I do think this could be our last season of flashbacks. Because Oliver first donned his green hood and eye makeup and tried to be a vigilante in Coast City, and the criminal he fights with gets away, and suddenly Amanda Waller arrives. And you can tell he's not very good at what he does. He's getting shot at, things like that. And I really like seeing Oliver in this position of being, the Arrow, but being terrible at it, because we're so used to him being this, hero and just doing things perfectly, but here he's not doing things perfectly at all, and I definitely really like that. So Laurel and the DA are talking at the courthouse when the DA notes their coffee tasted funny before collapsing, and Laurel contacts the others, worried about the city leaders. She goes to see Lance while Diggle sends Thea to the comptroller, and he goes to protect the head of emergency services. A gunfight then erupts in police headquarters with several uniformed officers getting shot. But Laurel shows up just in time to save Lance, though he does take a bullet to the shoulder. Luckily, he's okay. I was happy he was. I really did not want them to kill off Lance. And the other city leaders are not so lucky. They're all killed before Diggle and Thea can save them. And you can just see that without Oliver, the city, there's just not as functional. Even though it seemed like they're safe without Oliver, they can't work without him. And which is kind of surprising, because you'd think they'd be able to, but I think the reason is because it's a lot crazier what was going on. There's a lot more going on in the city than when Oliver wasn't around. So after dinner, Oliver insists Felicity try his souffle, even though she claims to be full, and he plans on proposing her right then and there, but the doorbell rings before he can give it to her, and it's Thea and Laurel, and you can tell how much Oliver doesn't want to see him. Obviously, he's happy to see them because he hasn't seen him in a while, but at the same time, he knows what he has to go back to, and they're there to ask for help. Thea and Laurel catch Oliver and Felicity up on the ghost, and Oliver asks about their base of operations, and they are forced to admit they do not know where it is. And they basically say that they need the arrow at this point, and Oliver tries to say no, but when he asks Felicity, she makes it clear she wants to help them, which, if Felicity wants to help, obviously Oliver wants to help them. And I have to say, a lot of people have been, saying that Felicity and Oliver are stupid and that they're ruining the show. What happened with Felicity last season that she got way too annoying and way too serious, and she became less of just a fun, nerdy girl who, wasn't afraid to be herself, and more of just this annoying girl that just complained every 5 seconds. This is the Oliver and Felicity that we love. The Oliver and Felicity we had in this episode, this is what I want to see all season. I love this Oliver and Felicity. They're very cute together, and when they don't focus on it the whole time, when they don't make it the entire show around it, it works very, very well, and they have very good chemistry overall, definitely. And that's something I've seen from the beginning, and I think definitely now that they're together, just knowing they're together, we don't have to worry about this ridiculous storyline of will they or won't they, because that's over. They're together now, and I'm happy for them, definitely. It's very good that we saw that. So, flashback to Amanda and Oliver. They go for a drink in a bar in Coast City, and she's surprised that he didn't return to Starling City, but he does not want to be so close to his family. Now, after what he did to General Shreve, and basically Amanda encourages Oliver to embrace his darkness, and he realizes that they are surrounded by Argus, and that she spiked his drink, and he passes out, and we don't know what she's trying to do here, but obviously he passes out, so that's not good. And Oliver and Felicity then head to Star City in a limo that she arranged, and he looks down at how desolate the city is and wonders if they actually accomplished anything, which it seems like they haven't, because the city is even worse than when he left. He thought that the city was good without him, but clearly he was mistaken. You can see how upset he is about this. So they go to headquarters. Diggle is furious at seeing Oliver. He does not want to see him at all. And Felicity stops their argument by finding out the exact weapons the ghost stole, cluster bombs. And I like how even though Oliver's trying to have a fun life, it's not necessarily disrupted, but there's gonna be drama. There's no such thing as a perfect lifestyle. It seems like Oliver thinks there is, but there's not. And I think he knew in the back of his mind that this was inevitable, but he just didn't want to think about it. I think that's really what's going on there, and I definitely really like that. So, Oliver falls back into his old role as leader. He's trying to give them orders. Right away, he falls right back into it. He's telling Laurel to go check on Lance. Basically, he's telling Laurel to go check on Lance. Diggle basically telling Diggle to make some orders. And everyone's shocked because he hasn't done this in a very long time. And it was pretty funny to see that. But, he's so used to being the leader that he knows what he's doing. So Diggle decides to go home while Thea and Laurel recognize that Oliver's ideas were good, and they head out, and they listen to him anyway, which I thought was kind of funny. And now alone with Felicity, Oliver wants to know how she knows so much and is able to work so quickly. And he realizes that she was already, and he doesn't understand why she is just, she's back as the computer tech that we always know she does. She looks up stuff, she hacks into computers, that's her thing. And he's wondering why she was doing this. And then we get this really great twist that I personally really like, that we realize she was already helping the group behind his back, and he obviously feels betrayed about this. He's really upset, but they don't spend a lot of time on this because he doesn't, it's not as big as a deal to him. Even though she's done this, he knows why she had to do it, and he understands. So, Laurel goes to check on Lance, and he tries to convince her to keep out of danger, but as usual, it does not work. Obviously, he wants the best for his daughter, but you can tell that he still doesn't want her working as the Black Canary, and she wants the idea for potential targets for the bombers, but he's pretty insistent that Star City is dead enough where no event or area stands out, and that pretty much is true. Star City is nothing at this point. So Diggle plays with baby Sarah, and Lila makes it clear that she has moved past what Oliver did to her. It was a war, and Oliver did what he needed to do in order to win. And Lila also points out how much Oliver needs Diggle. It's true. I mean, the bond between Oliver and Diggle has been one of the most integral parts of the show. And if Diggle's not going to trust Oliver, Oliver's going to be broken throughout this entire season. And obviously, Diggle doesn't want that. And she says, if Oliver Queen always made the right choice, then he wouldn't mind, needing him. So I do agree with that. I think that, Diggle definitely does want to forgive Oliver, but you can see that Diggle's not upset because he doesn't forgive Oliver. He's upset because he feels like he is the thing that caused it and that he feels really bad about it. And he didn't try to, put a stop to it more than he should have. Because if you remember, Diggle was going to leave Team Arrow because he wanted to focus on his life with his baby and his wife. And he wanted to do that. But then when the whole, fugitive thing started going on with Oliver, Diggle really couldn't do anything about it because he was pretty much planning on leaving. And then when things happened, it just was too late. And I can understand why Diggle feels really bad about it, obviously. I can totally understand that. So Oliver reviews several times when they traveled the world pre-Suburbia that Felicity was absent or late, and she admits she's been helping the team. Felicity loves being with Oliver, but the life they're living bores her, and that's understandable. I mean, the life they're living is not that interesting. I mean, he's just cooking and things like that, and it's true. Everyone needs a little excitement in their life, and that was Felicity's little excitement. They're interrupted when their computer tracks the bombs, and Felicity tells Oliver that before they left, Cisco made him a new suit, and I like how Cisco is making the suits. Now, Oliver walks out, claiming he won't be there long enough to need it, and I love the costume, honestly. I think it's a really badass costume. It looks really cool on him, and I definitely really do like it. So, he basically plans on just going for this one mission and then going back to his life because he doesn't really want to do this anymore. So Thea, Laurel, Diggle, and Oliver watch as the ghosts in their base are lectured by the man who earlier threatened the city leaders, and Damien claims to be disappointed in Alvarez, who led the mission to steal the bombs, and Alvarez points out that the theft was successful, but basically Damien's angry that the people who tried to stop them were not killed. And the man places a hand on Alvarez's chest, and Alvarez turns green and dies right then and there. So you can tell that Damien is probably the greatest threat they've had. I mean, they've never had someone like this where they could just kill someone by placing a hand on their shoulder. That was crazy when that happened, and that was awesome. But Team Arrow comes in fighting, and basically Thea continues to pummel the same man once he is already down, which does not escape Oliver's notices. He can tell how strong she's grown and how more powerful she is. And maybe it's because of the after effects of the Lazarus pit, but it honestly seems like it's worked to Thea's advantage. It's made her more stronger and more of a badass, which is awesome. It could be her downfall, but right now, at least, it's working to her advantage. But that definitely, I think, is something to keep tabs on this season, definitely. I mean, she did go back into the Lazarus pit, and, they say when you go into the Lazarus pit, you come back a changed person, and I feel like this is Thea's change. So, the target for the bombs is the new rail station. As they leave, Lance notices Oliver, who's only disguised as a black ski mask, and basically at headquarters, the team discusses how the man in charge seems to be able to kill with only a touch, and Oliver says he's not a metahuman, though he has no real proof except that he's seen things. He knows what metahumans are like, but he doesn't think that Damien is a metahuman. So, Diggle is furious about Oliver's lack of information since the first train is arriving the next day from Central City, and they decide that is probably when the bombs will be detonated. So the next day, Oliver and Thea check out the station, and Oliver asks if she's okay, and tries to talk to Thea about her behavior, because he can tell that she's acting differently, and she brushes him off and walks away. So definitely her come back from Lazarus pit has really affected her. And we didn't really get a lot of that last season. And I like they're really starting to show more of that because, yeah, the Lazarus pit is a pretty big deal. It does change you, and you can see that with Thea. So Oliver goes to Diggle next, wanting to know if Thea's alright. Diggle says that Thea reminded him of how Oliver used to be. Oliver used to be very passive and didn't really want to talk a lot. And Diggle also explains how he's mad at himself for believing in Oliver, and that Oliver was so successful at infiltrating the League of Assassins because he's just like them. And I honestly do agree with that. Oliver basically joined League of Assassins because he was just as powerful as them, and that he had that power, and he didn't know how to handle it, and he couldn't control it, and that's why Diggle was as upset as he was. And I like that Diggle, admitted that I'm not mad at you because of this one thing. I'm mad at you because I believed in you, and I thought it was going to go better than it did, and it didn't go well. So I like that he admitted that. I definitely like that. So Lance shows up and confronts Oliver next, blaming him for bringing darkness to the city and inspiring monsters, and I like how Oliver talks about how he needs to do this, and Lance understands that. I like how Lance is trying to have Oliver's back now. I definitely really do like that. I do admit, though, that part of this is because of Oliver joining League of Assassins. That's why things have gotten so bad, because he wasn't around to be the Arrow, and he had to, do some dark deeds, and that's what's happened there. Now, that isn't necessarily his fault. He honestly had no other choice, because probably, Roz would have killed everyone. But at the same time, it is kind of his fault. I do agree with Lance that this is partially his fault. So, we see a flashback of Oliver. He wakes up on an Argus plane. He's greeted by a suit and a soldier. And Oliver demands to speak to Amanda, but she's not there. And Oliver's being sent on a mission to infiltrate and report back. He tries to refuse, but the suit pulls a gun on him and forces Oliver to put on a parachute. And Oliver looks out of the plane and sees an island below him. He turns to ask if they are sending him back to Lian Yu, but he's kicked off the plane literally before he can finish the sentence. So he has no idea where he's going. So back to the present, Oliver and Felicity are alone in the hideout, and she offers to go home. It gets him to admit how much he misses this life, and how he doesn't actually want to go back home. And that's kind of just the safe option, even though he wants to go back home, this is his life. This is what he's involved with, and he can't get out of it. And I like that Felicity told him that, because Oliver admits he thinks that Lance is right, that he does bring darkness with him, that the only way he knows how to fight darkness is with more darkness, and he does not want that. He doesn't want to be, he doesn't want to have that darkness and power inside of him, and I definitely really like seeing that. So the others arrive from the train station. There's no sign of the bombs, and Oliver's words about bringing the darkness gives Felicity an idea. The bombs are coming by trains, and the first train scheduled to arrive soon from Central City, so Felicity shows Oliver the new brighter green suit that Cisco made, and Oliver puts that on, and this suit is a lot lighter. It definitely brings Oliver back into the definitely brings him more into more of a lighter side, and I definitely really like that. So the train is coming. Diggle drives alongside his van with Oliver on top of it, and in the station, Thea fires a smoking arrow to get everyone's attention, yells for them to get out, and Laurel helps a young boy who gets knocked down, and he marvels at her strength. Lance arrives and helps activate the building, and basically Felicity calls Diggle and Oliver to tell him that they have 6 minutes. Oliver jumps out the train, takes out a ghost, and from another train car, we see Damien in charge, tries to call the ghost, but Oliver answers instead, appears in the car. The man, basically, Damien claims to have destroyed the brakes 20 miles ago, but there's no stopping the train, and Oliver fires an arrow, and the man stops it telekinetically and introduces himself, of course, as Damien, and he mentally sends the arrow back at Oliver, who ducks and fires a few more, and Damien stops them all without touching them, and the two men have a whole fist fight, with Damien winning easily, and I was really worried that Damien was going to die here, and that something bad was going to happen, that we weren't going to see Damien, but luckily they're keeping him on, because he is probably, and I think he honestly has potential to be the greatest villain we've seen in this show, honestly. He is awesome. He touches Oliver's chest. Oliver starts to turn green, but Damien's hit with a tranquilizer, shot by Diggle. He lets Oliver go, but vanishes from the train. Oliver and Diggle get off, and Oliver uses an exploded arrow to stop the train. So, at headquarters, Thea wants to know Oliver's new code name, and Diggle claims that Oliver doesn't need one because he's leaving, but one look at Felicity, and Oliver says that he's staying, because he knows that's what Felicity wants, and obviously he wants to make her happy, and plus I think he still plans on proposing to her, so he wants to make her as happy as possible, and he tells them that the man is Damien, and that he leads a hive using Ra's al Ghul's words, and Diggle remembers Deadshot mentioning hive in regards to Andy's death, but lies and claims to have never heard of them. And that definitely is going to be a problem for Diggle and Oliver. Just the fact that he's not being honest with Oliver shows how untrustworthy he is of Oliver right now. He still needs to get back that trust, because he doesn't really trust that Oliver is going to be able to take down Damien. After the whole thing with Roz, he really doesn't trust him, and I definitely feel it's going to take a lot for him to get that trust back. So Diggle starts to go home, no longer furious, but not quite ready to trust Oliver again, you can just tell, and Oliver asks him to wait. There's one more thing they need to do, and after Felicity hijacks the emergency broadcast system, Oliver in full gear speaks to the city about being the kind of inspiration that the Arrow never was, and how the light can defeat the dark. He is a symbol of hope, and he is the Green Arrow, and I thought that was awesome, because that's where we want to get Oliver. We want to get to that point of becoming the Green Arrow, and that's exactly where he is now. He's going to be the Green Arrow. He's going to be a lot less dark than the Arrow was, and I definitely really love that. So, Oliver then lands hard on Lian Yu in the flashback. As soon as he does, a man in fatigues points a gun at him and demands to know who he is, and who this man is, we don't know. So Damien opens a cabinet in his lair. There's a knife and a small statue. He cuts his wrist, performs a ritual making symbols temporarily on his arm, and a man comes to see him, and it's Lance. And basically, he tells him that he did not sign up for people being killed, but Damien answers that Lance did agree to obey, and Damien wants Lance to find out all about the Green Arrow. And obviously, this is going to be a terrible thing for Lance. He might have to betray Oliver, and definitely, I like how involved Lance is with this, because Lance has always seemed like he's been, kind of like either he's on Oliver's side or he's completely against him. And this season, it seems like to me a lot more complicated. Like, he wants to be on Oliver's side, but he has this personal, he has this thing where he can't be on his side because he's working with Damien. And if that's where we're going, that's going to be very interesting. And if Damien's trying to turn everyone against Oliver and try to get information about him, I definitely really like that. And like I said, I think Damien has potential to possibly become the best villain on this show. I really do. So, Felicity and Oliver move into the apartment Thea and Oliver used to share, and Thea moved in with Laurel a while back, not wanting to stay in the home where she was stabbed, which is understandable. And Oliver decides to hide the engagement ring because he realizes that they're not getting engaged anytime soon. There's just no time that's going to happen. Do I think they will get engaged by the end of the season? Yes, I do think he will eventually propose to her by the end of the season. I don't know when, but I do think that's eventually going to happen. However, then we cut to 6 months later, and this was very interesting. It does show that things are not going to stay as lighthearted as they are. Things are going to get dark. But what I like is that this was not like the Season 3 premiere where someone was just killed off randomly. I mean, that was well done, but that worked for that episode, and it would not work for this episode, because that's happened before. So Oliver stands on a grave, and I like that they don't name who this person is that's dead, because if they would have done that, they would have ruined the entire thing. And Barry then shows up and apologized for missing the funeral, and Oliver asks if it was because of Zoom, who we can definitely tell is going to play a big role with this season, definitely. And, with the flashlight. And Barry nods, and Oliver tearfully says he does not blame himself, but it is his responsibility to kill the person responsible, and he wants to kill this person. That's something that he never wanted to do, and it seems like now, finally, Oliver's going to kill someone. And Barry offers his help. Oliver has to be left alone, so Barry speeds off, and Oliver remains at the grave, and as we know, I believe he did kill Ra's al Ghul last season, if I'm not mistaken. He did kill him. Yeah, he did kill Ra's al Ghul. We know he killed Ra's al Ghul. It felt underwhelming, though. And, definitely, that's how that ends. He remains at the grave, and we know that someone is going to die. But what I like is that this is 6 months later. It gets us, ready for what's going to happen. It makes us excited for, obviously not excited, but who do I think the person that dies is? I honestly feel the two people that could die that would break Oliver to his core. I mean, anyone on this team, really. But if it's Thea or Diggle, that's who I think it is. I don't think it's Felicity. There's no way they're going to kill off Felicity, honestly. They know what we like. They're not going to kill off Felicity. If they know what's good for them, the Felicity and Oliver dynamic is one of the best parts of the show. It really is. But if Diggle were to die, that could be very interesting. But I honestly would want it to be Thea, because now she's come back from the Lazarus pit, and she's now kind of emotionless. She doesn't have as, she's kind of ignoring Oliver and being very passive about things, and I really feel that's going to eventually be her downfall. So I really feel this person could be Thea that was killed, and I hope that's not the case, but I think that it's either Diggle or Thea, definitely, because that would really break Oliver, especially if it's Diggle. And let's talk about Diggle and Oliver. Diggle and Oliver definitely, it seems like Diggle wants to trust Oliver, but they're just at this point where he can't do it yet. Like, he's close to trusting him, but he knows that because of what happened the last time, he doesn't know if it's going to work out, and because of that, he just can't trust Oliver like Oliver wants him to. It's sad, but that's what's going to happen there. What is Lance going to do with Damien? Obviously, Damien wants Lance to possibly turn against Oliver, so we'll have to see what happens there. That's definitely going to be very interesting. Is Felicity going to possibly find out about her proposal? I hope she doesn't, because I do want Oliver to propose to her eventually. So we'll see how that goes. I'm definitely interested in seeing what's going to happen there. And Thea as well. Is she kind of changed from the Lazarus pit? It really seems like she has, and I really hope that she tries to do something about it, because it's going to be her downfall, and it's not going to end well, definitely, for anyone if that happens. Also, with the flashbacks, who is this man that Oliver's met up with, and what exactly happened to him here? We don't know why he's back, but now he's back on Lian Yu, and we don't know why he's back there, so we'll have to see what happens with that, because that definitely is going to be very interesting to see what happens with that. Oliver killing this man. Who is the one that killed the person that died? What's going to happen there? I think we've now set up the crossover, pretty much. We know when the crossover is going to happen. It's going to happen definitely, I think it's going to happen later this season. I know there's going to be another one between The Flash and Arrow, but it definitely is going to happen this season. I'm definitely looking forward to that. But overall, guys, I thought this was a great premiere, an amazing premiere, actually. I really did love it, a lot better than I thought it was going to be. I think that definitely this was what the show needed. It needed a soft reboot. That basically is where we are. We're in a soft reboot territory. While things are the same now, they're not, because Oliver's a different man. He has a new agenda, and he wants things done differently, and we're really seeing that. It's not same-ish like it was last season. I'm definitely interested in seeing what happens in the coming weeks. But that's just my review. Hope you guys enjoyed. Let me know what you guys thought of this episode. I thought this was an amazing premiere overall. And I will see you guys in my next video, which will be for the series premiere of American Horror Story Hotel. And I will see you guys for that. Okay, bye.